Hello and welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Blender Cycles render engine, using it along with the open shading language to create really photorealistic texture maps that we in turn bake onto the materials, onto our object, and then bring that into the THREE.js. Alright, so why don't I just demo what that would look like. I'm going to come over here, open up my copy, and go over to our local web host. Localhost web.gl. Alright, so you can see what I've done here is I've created this monkey head and mapped a texture onto it. And you can see it's got some specular highlights on it. We can decrease the intensity on it. And we have a really realistic scene right here. Alright, so how do we go about creating this? Well, let's go ahead and close this up for now. You can see I've upgraded over to Blender 2.74. The reason being mostly pertains to a couple shading options that have been added into here. And we can show you that. You can see now you can add an ambient occlusion and depth of field into your GLSL shader, which is kind of a cool new feature that they added. Alright, so let's go ahead, delete this. I'm going to delete this lamp right here. We don't need that. We're going to switch over to the Cycles render engine. And we're going to go ahead and add ourselves a monkey head. Let me turn on this quick preferences so you guys can see my screencast. Alright, so here's our monkey head. We're going to do the, we don't need to do that right now, but we will eventually add on the subdivide this whole thing. Alright, let's create the UVs on this. So I'm going to go into edit mode. And I'm going to just create some simple UV mappings on this. So I'm going to select this piece right here. Control E. Hop over, edge loop. And we'll mark that seam. Okay, and let's do another one real quick right over here. We're just going to quickly go through this and mark a couple seams. And the edge loop doesn't work on every single model, so sometimes we have to do these by hand. Alright, let's mark those seams. And we will mark that seam. Oops. Let me do that. Alright, that should work. Alright, let's go into our UV editor real quick. Okay, change mode, UV editor. Alright, we're going to create a new image. 1024 is fine. Alright, that's fine. Okay. So now let's go back over here, select all, go to shading UV, and UV unwrap. All right. Okay, so we have our unwrapped UV right there. That looks good. We can close. We can switch over now to Node Editor. All right, now we need to apply a material on here. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you a little website I found. All right, if you search up OSL shaders, let's see what we got. Okay, right here, this guy has created a whole bunch of shader collections that you can download. Now, shaders are just pretty much procedurally drawn images. You can go ahead and just download this, and I'll show you how to load that up. So I've already downloaded it, and I've stuck it in my Blender folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use these to kind of do the, to kind of create the shading that's going to go on here. And I've already have this. Real quick, I'm going to add the subdivision surface modifier and turn on the smooth on that, just so it looks nice. Alright, now going in. Alright, let's first add a material onto here. Alright, so we have our generic material. What we're going to do in the node editor is actually add on a material onto here, which is going to be one of those scripts that we have right there. But the first thing we have to do in order for that to work is actually come over to said Blender folder and actually look and see how to set it up. So in the case of, let's say we did a pattern, let's say we were doing the wood one, we want to do the parquet tile, this one for example. You can preview that real quick and you can see how that looks. Okay, so let's say we want to use this one. What we need to do is actually take a look at this preview right here, and this is going to tell you how to set the whole thing up. Okay, so we've already set up the UVs. All we need to do is load up the script, the UV into the vector, and then the BSDF into the surface. So let's go ahead and do that one. Alright, come down over here to add script, external, and then we'll go to our OSL shaders file, wood parquet, and then all you need to do is click that OSL script, accept on that, connect that to that, and then the next step is going to be to add that texture coordinates, and then we'll just connect the UV over to there. Go ahead and remove that. Alright, so you'll notice that nothing's going on right here. Okay, the reason is because under the render tab, we need to enable the OSL shaders for that to work. Alright, so now that's enabled, come over here and preview. And you can see now it's working. Alright, so what do we have here? Okay, so we have our monkey. I'm going to go into the render view, come up over to the camera, grab, dolly in real quick, whoop, just to get a better view. Alright, let's go switch over, render that out real quick just so we can see how it looks. Alright, it's really dark because we don't have any lights in the scene. Alright, so if you remember when we were looking at this earlier, I had kind of this green background. So going with the whole scene with this all this green in here, let's go ahead and let's go and add in a image-based lighting solution. Easiest way to do that, switch over to your world mode, go to use nodes, okay? And once you've done that, if you come back over here, you'll see that we have a background node. I've switched down here to the world mode. And all we have to do is add a image node into it. So we'll do environment texture, and we'll connect that to that. We will open up our textures folder and add in a image to that. So that's just an old forest that I just stuck in there. Okay, so now if we come over here and render this out. Alright, so you can see we're getting something nice. Now, we're getting a lot of noise on this object, so let's go ahead, come down here, and we're going to switch over to, so under sampling, we're going to switch over to square samples. This is going to basically quadruple the amount of samples that we have in the scene. Let's go and render that now. Alright, now you can see we're getting something that's really realistic looking. Okay, so let's just say that we're happy with this. Alright, next thing we need to do is actually bake this texture. In order to bake the texture, you're going to need to add a node to that material tab. Alright, so what we need to do, and this is kind of weird, but we actually have to add a texture node, and it just has to be an image texture. Like so. And then we have to switch it to our UV image. So that was the image that we created earlier. So now if we come back over here to the UV tab, and we go down to the bottom of this, and you'll see that we have a bake tab right down here. And we just want to bake the UV right there. Go ahead and hit bake. Oops, that was not right. Alright, we'll just do bake command. Alright, now we just wait patiently. And it's about a quarter of the way done on that. Halfway done. And voila. Okay, so you can see how it's baked that entire surface on there. Okay, so next step. What do we do next? Alright, what we need to do is, in fact, save this image. And we'll save it to our textures folder, and we will call it UV image. Let's switch it over to a JPEG. PNGs contain a little more information than we actually need. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Okay. Alright, so I have that. Alright, next I need to assign that texture. To this material. So we don't need to be in the cycles runner anymore. In fact, we can kind of default away from all these settings. All we really need to do is just assign a material that's going to be exportable over. So let's just go ahead and switch back over to the Blender renderer. And I'm going to kind of get out of all these other materials that I had. I'm going to apply that. And I'm going to go back over to the world node. Make sure everything's kosher now. Okay, now I'm going to create a new standard material. And I'm going to add a texture to that. And that texture is going to be the UV image that we just made. So now if you come back over here, you'll see that's being applied. Switch this over to texture mode. Oop. Maybe not. Alright, I'm going to turn on ambient occlusion just so we can see the scene. Alright, so now you can see in that mode, and if I just switch over to render mode, you can see everything is completely rendered over here, and we can kind of look at our model that way. Alright, so let's say we're happy with this. You know, we've mapped the texture, we like the look of it. Alright, the next thing we have to do is actually export this model. Okay, so we'll just switch over. We come down here, export THREE.json. And we're going to need to export it into our models folder. And I believe I was calling this one textured monkey. Alright, so what do we need to export with this one? Vertices, faces, yes. And then check all these 4 boxes right down here. And go ahead and hit export on that. And there's a lot of vertices and a lot of information with this, so it could take time because you have all of the UV information as well as all the vertice information. So this could take a little bit of time to export. Alright, so that's done. Alright, we need to also go back over to our UV image, and we need to save this image. We need to save it in the same folder as our models. Okay, so we'll keep that as UV folder. Okay, let's minimize that. I'm going to come back over to brackets. And I'm going to open up that JSON file to make sure everything's kosher with it. Okay, so what do we have here? Should be a map diffuse that actually specifies the, here it is. Alright, so that's going to call our image right there. And then we have our vertices right here. The big blob of them, there's a lot. Okay. And then in addition, we should have the UVs as well. So let's see if we can find that. So we have vertices. Where on earth are the UVs? Oh, there we go. Nope, faces. There we go. Alright, and there are our UVs. Okay, so that's all of the information that we need. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and come back over to our main.js folder. Alright, and I've made a couple changes to this. It's not far from the last one exercise that we looked at. But there is one small difference. Okay, so we have our materials loading up, and that's just set to the one material since that's all we have. And then we have that loading there and being added right in there. So it's looking at the JSON file in that particular list and assigning it to the material and then sticking it in here. Now, one little thing that I added in here, and this is a little secret, is the model.traverse. And we're going through the entire mesh, and we're going to recalculate the compute vertex normals. The reason being for this is that when you import a JSON file, it does not do these calculations. So if I don't have this mesh, I'll show you in a second what that'll look like. I'm going to disable this. Okay, so I'm going to disable this. And everything else is pretty much the same when it comes to the loader. We're just adding the model and then loading the whole thing up. And then our materials has all of the UV texture image and all that stuff. And as long as we keep that texture in the correct folder, it'll be fine. Everything else will load fine. All right, so let's take a look and see how that looks. Let me hit refresh on this. And something didn't load. Oops. Try it again. And something didn't load. Let's see what's going on here. Might have to do with my materials. Oh, no, when I exported that, I had a scene. Again, that mistake I said, when you don't uncheck that scene box, it'll give you that mistake. So the models. Alright, so you'll see I had these checked. Bottom, got to decheck those. Alright, now it'll work fine. Okay, let's try that again. Go ahead and hit refresh on this. And hit refresh. And you can see what it's done is it's actually gone through and smoothed this out. Now, one of the other issues that we're having right now, and the only way to really fix this is by using a larger texture map, is that with our 1024 by 1024, this stuff is not really coming in as clear as we'd like it to be. So if we want to fix that and make it a little nicer, what we're going to have to do is come back over to our Blender folder. We'd have to redo this whole process because you can see with the UV map, it actually didn't come out that nice. Okay. Now, I've already actually done this another time. I did that. That was with the one that I demoed earlier was with the 2048 sized map. So let me just show you that real quick. And so in order to do that, I'm just going to need to simply edit the UV texture. You can just come up to the top and take a look. Oh, where is that? It does not want me to go to the top today on this one. Alright, UVs. Where is it calling the image? Oh, there it is. UV generator. Control H. Do it the old-fashioned way. Find. Okay. So what we're going to do is actually change this value right here to the original one that I had made earlier. So that would be called, let's refresh my login. So it's uvmonkey.png. Okay, this is gonna, when I did the wrapping on this, it was a little bit different the way I unwrapped this first one, so it's not gonna look quite the same. So we'll see how this comes out. This might actually not work at all, now that I think about it. Oh, it's not horrible. Okay. And now on this one, it's actually it's going to be a little bit easier to actually see what happens if I don't have that traverse on. So I'm just going to disable that. Alright, you can see how it gives you this tessellated look on everything. Okay, and that's because it doesn't compute the normals on the vertexes when you bring in a JSON file. You have to do that manually by adding this little function right here. Okay, and then from in here, if you want, you can go in and you can change all these values. So for example, if we put that on at 5,000, hit save on this, brought that in, hit refresh. Okay, now we're getting a really cool little specular coefficient on that. Okay, so that is the basics of getting an image in here through the JSON format, making sure that it looks really, really good, and how to do everything properly. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I hope this tutorial helps you guys, and thank you again, and don't forget to subscribe.